And you see those images in the windows, which bring back memories to a lot of people.
Oh, beautiful people on ads that make you want to shop at Cincinnati's first department store. The animated display is called 100 Springs. As Local 12's Deborah Dixon tells us, it celebrates the artist, a woman who's welcoming her own 100th spring.
The animation images seem timeless, but the illustrations are from another time, before ads were photographs. It was up to fashion illustrators to draw people into Shillitos. No one did it better than Anne Wainscott. She is 100 years old today. The ads now decorate her Covington home.
I love clothes. I was crazy about clothes in those days. I made everything I wore myself, or if I bought it, I redid it.
Those days were from 1939 to 1979. Anne Wainscott created thousands of fashion illustrations for Shillitos and newspapers. With a watercolor brush or ink, she could make the gowns flow, and the intensity of faces, such as this one, called Green Eyes, captivated shoppers.
I don't think people come in the store and say, I want this dress from a photograph, usually.
I agree.
Where artwork, sometimes they can have the skirt blowing, or they have a gal with her hair. I mean, they could make her look a little more glamorous.
Any good piece of commercial art or advertising is meant to create desire. And I think Annie, through both the flow of the fabrics and the dresses and the pieces themselves, but she was able to draw a truly human connection, you know, with these faces. And in an artful way, and in a way that in some ways photography can't.
Landor is a brand consulting and design company in the old Shillitos department store. The big display windows are where Annie's illustrations are on display.
The illustrations are still so relevant because I think her talent, you know, is so evident. Certainly in the fashion, but as we were talking about earlier, in the faces, you know, and the features that she's able to capture. They were meant to do a job. They were meant to work very hard. They were meant to create desire, largely among women, to want, you know, to buy those products, to wear those products.
Perhaps that's why Annie was always asked to do the bridal ads.
There's a Shillito ad.
Sure is. It's a bride's world. There is something about Annie. She has lots of friends, strong women mostly. Born before women could vote, Annie attended the recent Women's March in Washington Park. She talks about being the daughter of immigrants. Her mother was a seamstress, father a tailor on Eastern Avenue. She also talks about the relatives who didn't come to America. She believes everyone in this photo died in the Holocaust. Annie married Jim, an artist, in 1939. Both sons are artists. The rest is Cincinnati history. People still think about you and talk about you and talk about your artwork. So that's pretty amazing legacy.
That amazes me.
Since Annie's 100, I had to ask, how are you still enjoying life and having friends and at 100?
Well, I don't know how to answer that. I would say that I just haven't died yet.
About turning 100, Anne Wainscott has to admit there are days she wishes she could go back to when she was 85. Deborah Dixon, Local 12 News.
She still looks glamorous, and Landor had a surprise party for Annie Friday night at its office in the old Shillitos building. Overwhelmed, she said, by those who came. Of her work, Annie said she was just doing her job. And you know, Landor invited me over there a couple years ago when they first had a display of her illustrations in their window, and they also had some of her clothing works. It's so impressive, and I love fashion anyway.
Oh, really?
And you look at those illustrations, so it makes me sad that we do everything on the computer now.
Isn't that true? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But her work is beautiful. She looked beautiful at 100. Isn't that something?
Lovely.
And for those of you who don't know, Deborah Dixon is also an artist, as is her son Tyler.
That's right.
So
Very
she's
good
the perfect reporter for the story. Mm-hmm.